By now, all but the ideologically blind and the outright stupid believe the lies that they are being told about the Colosseum. You can believe JIM McMAHON and Debbie Abrahams if you want, and the way they've suddenly appeared as if they've got an interest in what's taking place. One of them, well, he has no shame, has he? Because one of the reasons why it is in the mess it is because of him. You can also believe, if you want, the council stooges that run the I Love Oldham page. Those of you on social media have been following it, hidden behind an anonymous profile of I Love Oldham. They're churning out the council-sponsored propaganda that this is somehow the government's fault. Or you can perhaps believe council-funded newspapers, the Oldham Times and our local democracy reporter Charlotte Green, who are spinning this as a levelling up failure by the government and avoiding the obvious. In a town like ours, if you've been around long enough, you will see that the same mistakes are made by the same people over and over and over again. And all that happens is that they get a pay rise.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Almost every week it's the same. I have a question for those of you who join me. New or old, how many of you trust this council? Not on the things that there should never have been any question of, such as the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children. No. Not on issues such as that. I mean on something as simple as being able to effectively run this town. Run the administration of this town. Do what they're supposed to do. How many of you are left who trust Amanda Chaddderton, Abdul Jabbar, Barbara Brownridge, or even the opposition? Howard Sykes, Sam Al-Hamdani, Graham Sheldon from his Saddleworth mansion. How many of you trust any of this lot to be able to, what's the old cliche phrase? Piss up in a brewery? No. This lot couldn't run a bath. You've all been lied to about the Colosseum. And I use the term lied to because I believe that's what's happened. At the very least, you've been misled, deceived, or in kinder language, failed. Failed by those who were entrusted to protect our history and our heritage. The Colosseum for me, and for many of you, and why we feel so passionately about it, I think, is because it was a rite of passage for us. As children, we went there with our parents or with schools, and as we got older, we took our own children, and as we got older again, some of us took our own grandchildren. It is a rite of passage in this town, and yes, it was to do with the pantomime that most of us connected, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. Yet here we are, 20 years or so now, the council has been attempting to find a new home for the Colosseum, but they don't get it. In those 20 years, the fake liberal metropolitan elite, the out-of-town careerists, and the politicians who want to use our town as a stepping stone in their careers, they don't get it. We don't want a new Colosseum. We want the same old Colosseum we now have, brought up to a standard that is fit for purpose. For the last month or so, I've been scratching my head over the Colosseum, not the cover-ups, but where we've ended up with it. And after struggling to make sense of it for such a long time, I ended up in this place. How many of you want a new Colosseum? How many of you want this one knocking down for a new row of chicken shops or something? You've seen the architect drawings and you've seen what this council has done. You've seen its track record. Show me one building it has delivered on time and on budget. One. Just show me one. McMahon, Fielding, Arooj Shah, Jean Stretton, Amanda Chaddderton, show me one. Amanda Chaddерton's got enough problems in Royton with Royton Town Hall, from what I can gather. Overspent, over budget, over time. Nothing new there. But the Colosseum has been a scam from the beginning in terms of its relocation. The only people who've made money out of this are the consultants that the council have hired. Now you'll have to ask yourselves if it is a scam. Over £3 million so far admitted to in consultancy fees in the failed relocation of the Colosseum, and that was forced out of Paul Bentwistle, the borough solicitor. Over £3 million in consultancy fees and legal fees and God knows what else fees. No samosa fees. Well, not for me anyway. Maybe there were some sackfuls of samosas somewhere else. And the lie you're being told is that the Colosseum is not fit for purpose, and we must demolish it, we must move from it, and we must move into a purpose-built building. And I looked at the I Love Oldham page, and the Jeremy M.T. Sutcliffe, or whatever that idiot's called, I bumped into in town last year, I think. He was walking around with his camera, taking photographs. He saw me and ran the other way. So the lie is that the Colosseum is not fit for purpose. Well, I've been in many a historical theatre all across the world, as old as, if not older than the Colosseum. There is no need to move that building. There is no need to demolish that building. How many of you disagree with me? Is there any need to move that building? We want that building brought back to life, fit for purpose, so our children and our grandchildren, so there's a connection in the town. My father took me, I took my daughter, so on and so on. But these scumbags, they have no history or heritage in our town. They don't care. They never went there. It means nothing to them other than a pay packet and a career progression project to have on their portfolios. That's what this is to Emma Barton and her team. And I'm not picking on Emma Barton. It was the same to whoever was in that role before her and the one before and the one before that. None of them hang around to see the repercussions, the consequences of their actions. One master plan after another after another. There is no reason whatsoever that I can see that anyone is coming forward with as to why we should move out of the Colosseum. And they have played you, and every one of you who supported to save the Colosseum. I followed those pages. They used the photographs of the old Colosseum and deceived you into thinking it was about saving the building. They're not interested in saving their building, and I'll talk this evening and go through every deceit, duplicity, inconsistency that has been shared with you by Amanda Chaddерton, by Barrelgate Bashforth, by Sam Al-Hamdani, by Barbara Brownridge, by Harry Caffrell, Emma Barton and their team, including the fake liberal metropolitan elite who have been jumping up and down wanting to save not the Colosseum, but save their income stream. 135 years old, Nick. Steeped in heritage and history. And what they want to do is demolish it and move to something purpose-built. That they failed. They failed for 20 years. And I'll give you one of the inconsistencies. The Colosseum claim the current building is too small for them. They haven't got proper rehearsal space. They haven't got proper storage space. It's too small for them. That's what the council claim. And let's be clear. When we say the Colosseum, we mean the council. Because the Colosseum Board of Trustees and the entire structure is just a front through which the council run the Colosseum. I don't think there's any doubt about that with any of you, is there? The council just use it as a front through which they actually really are pulling the strings. Nothing new in this town. Nothing new in this town as to how this council operates. So these con artists claim that the Colosseum isn't big enough, so they want to move. And do you know where it's currently scheduled to move to? The old post office, which is opposite my old Peacemaker offices, so it's the local interest centre. They want to move it into there and the space behind. It's not big enough. And they're trying to move into somewhere or a space that will be created for 20 million, 30 million. That will be even smaller. And it'll look like something, well, my daughter's Lego set will look better. There is no need to move the Colosseum because it is too small. That is just complete nonsense. I've been in theatres all over the place that are smaller than the Colosseum, and they are thriving. The next nonsense, and Andy Burnham, your Greater Manchester Mayor, Pakistani rape gang protector #1, because it was his report, remember, that was commissioned, the assurance review. He claims there's asbestos. I'm sure there is asbestos. Like there's asbestos in theatres all across the country, but that asbestos has been contained and exists in a way that allows people to attend the theatre day in, day out, and has done for the last 100 years or more. The asbestos has got nothing to do with it, and asbestos can be removed safely. So the asbestos is just a word that Burnham wants to use to scare you, the same as his mates in the council. The asbestos has got nothing to do with it. And then there's nonsense like, oh, a wall fell down. Bullshit, a wall fell down. Absolute nonsense, a wall fell down. Then there's this nonsense about it not being DDA compliant. Who's got a pen? We'll do this now. You can do it on Tuesday. We'll do it properly on Tuesday, but who's got a pen? I read the Oldham, I Love Oldham posts. Not sure which imbecile has been, let free with the login details and a keyboard. It is not fully DDA compliant. Well, it doesn't have to be fully DDA compliant because there are theatres all across this country that are not fully DDA compliant. And even if it isn't fully DDA compliant, I've reached out and spoken with people, and disabled people I know or friends of mine have used the Colosseum quite happily, quite successfully for over a decade. So the size has nothing to do with it. Asbestos and safety of the building has nothing to do with it. And being fully DDA compliant has nothing to do with it. It's all to do with the samosas. It is all to do with the samosas. The Colosseum has had, I think, 5 chief executives in the last 6 years. By the way, this is under Barbara Brownridge and Sam Al-Hamdani, who are listed as trustees. The Colosseum has 5 chief executives in the last 6 years, and the most recent has got no experience whatsoever at that level. But he's enjoying the limelight. He's got his paper picture in the MEN. Nationally, he's got a sympathy story. The government haven't levelled up. They've took our funding away. The truth is the government are not taking any money away because it isn't the government's to take away. The grant is administered by the Arts Council. It's their money. They're independent. They are fiercely independent. And what they've done is they've played a blinder because they've had enough of the council and the Colosseum and the existing arrangement. They're not stupid. The Arts Council has delivered in partnership building after building across the country. It has funded successful organisation after successful organisation across the country. It knows, the people who run the Arts Council know that first and foremost, it's the people behind the organisation that matter the most, because you invest in people. And they're no longer willing to invest in the Colosseum. So what they did was they ring-fenced the £1.8 million and said to the council, you can have it, but you can't just have it through the Colosseum. Now, why isn't Amanda Chaddерton right now launching a consultation event with the town to see how best to create a cultural offer? Why aren't they doing that? Or are they trying to work out a way to get more money for glamping in Glodick and skinny dipping in the Snipe? So the Arts Council refused to put any more money into the Colosseum because it had been lied to and misled, promises failed one after another. And do you know what the Colosseum did as soon as the Arts Council told them in October and November last year that they'd failed in their bid? They started spinning a narrative. The council, remember, the council, the Colosseum, use the words interchangeably. Amanda Chaddерton, your Labour Party leader, your council leader, You saw her with McMahon and Debbie Cashmere photographed outside the Colosseum, doing all the PR crap, blaming the government. No, you had your own 0.8 million. McMahon, you are at the centre of this. Debbie Abrams only comes along, I think she needs her A to Z to come into Oldham. But McMahon only comes along now when there's gain to be had in it and he can leave before anyone sees him there. And every town centre failure and the tens of millions wasted can be traced back to James Ignatius or Rook McMahon. So the Colosseum, the Arts Council said no. And they said no because of the governance. Once the paperwork was eventually leaked, it was clear that the Arts Council no longer had any faith in the Colosseum's management. Now, why would you give £1.8 million to an organisation that has failed to deliver what it was meant to deliver with the previous rounds of grants and the previous rounds of grants before that? Why would you continue to do that? Who owns the Colosseum building? Does the trust own it? Because who owns the Colosseum building owns the land, don't they? Or is it the council? Who owns it? I'm asking, who owns it? Who owns the Colosseum? It's the council. It's the council. And 5 of the 6 chief executives have left because they realised that they were not able to operate the way in which a chief executive would have the remit to do so. The first thing the Colosseum and the council did, once they found out that they weren't getting the Arts Council money for the next 3 years, is they had a series of emergency meetings internally, and they announced the programme for the following year. They announced the programme up to Christmas with the next wave of pantomimes, knowing that they did not have the money to deliver. And do you know what they've been arguing over for the last month or so? You know, to save our Colosseum, and we're having emergency meetings with the Arts Council. Do you know what they've been arguing over? They've got another £500,000, I think a little bit more, to pay themselves a bit more money. So they booked performances and shows and whatnot, knowing they couldn't deliver them, and then gone back to the Arts Council for money to say, well, actually, if you're closing us down, we need more money to pay the people we've hired and we booked, even though we booked them when we knew we had no money. If any of these Muppets were in the real industry, they would be sacked. They went back to the cookie jar one more time for another wad of sugary sweets. And yes, I still want to see Amanda Chaddерton on a bicycle, and I make reference to the bicycle because at the same time as the Colosseum has lost its money, Andy Burnham's bullshit, B whatever, I want Burnham and Amanda Chadderton to ride a bicycle across Oldham. In November, December, January, February. Ride a bicycle. Come on. From Chaddерton Town Hall to the Civic Centre. Ride a bicycle. I'd wager neither the obese Amanda Chadderton nor the even more obese Howard Sykes would make it up that hill. They've agreed to spend £5 million on some harebrained scheme of a bridge between Tameside and Oldham. And don't believe Jeremy Sutcliffe's nonsense about it's not your money. It is your money. Every penny of public money is your money. The bridge is some scam to access more money and this B network nonsense. They've been putting in traffic lights and roadworks to accommodate these cycling. How many cyclists do you see in and around Oldham commuting? Where will people keep the bicycles when the majority of the houses that you expect the people to use that sort of stuff live in terraced houses, 2-bedroom terraced houses that are already overcrowded? And remember the kind of employment that most of our people are involved in. Heavy, hard, manual, with tools. Exhausting. Some work 2-3 jobs. No, we're not complaining. That's the reality of our lives. And if you want to go back to the Colosseum, and the failure to secure the funding for a new building. Not that any of us wanted a new building, but let's play that out. If you want to go back to a new building, Oldham Council put in 2 bids. Instead of putting in 1 bid, they put in 2 bids. So they put the Colosseum bid in for the town centre, which they've invested everything we've had. They've invested in that. They've even bought a shopping centre. So you'd finish that off, wouldn't you? You go back to Prince's Gate and the failed scheme after another that's cost another £10 million or so. Along with the failed hotel regeneration and all that. You know, the entire failed regeneration, at least 10 million, yeah? Is instead of doubling down and finishing what you've started, even though it's got hard, even though it's got difficult, even though we've had setbacks, throwing good money out after bad, our money, buying a shopping centre, then realising we don't own the leases, and God knows how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, have been lost in service charge fees, not service charge fees, business rate fees. They go and create this nonsense called Northern Roots. Northern Roots was your father or your mother taking you to the Colosseum like your grandparents did, like you've took your grandchildren. That is what Northern Roots is. Not some sort of beekeeping nonsense. And sorry, I'm not anti-environmentalist at all. But that was a natural eco centre, as it was. And what they've got is that they've gone and competed with themselves. They've gone and competed with themselves with some harebrained glamping in Glodick and skinny dipping in the snipe nonsense. And that Charlotte Green has posted online something along the lines of, well, I hope it's like a Scandi sort of thing. Just who do these people think they are? Who do they think we are? So they went back. The Colosseum, the council, went back to the Arts Council to pay the £500,000 in booking fees for the organisations that they've booked, knowing that they never had the money to honour those contracts. I've yet to find out whether Oldham Council also contributed to that with your money. Remember, Sam Al-Hamdani is a trustee. He won't say a word. That's because he's a coward. He's been caught red-handed, complicit in what's gone on, and he won't say a word. And it's the same with Barbara Brownridge. Won't say a word. And what you have here is an example of the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats working hand in hand together. So the entire Colosseum debate is framed in such a way where they've already decided that the existing building is not fit for purpose. Well, I want to see the reports that demonstrate this. If it's not DDA compliant, where's the report? Someone put an FOI in. Where's the report? If it's got asbestos and that asbestos is dangerous, where's the report? Have they done any consultation? No. They've done no consultation with the community, with the public, with the townsfolk. And the reason I'm talking about all of this is that it should be a manifesto pledge based upon the public outpouring of support in this town. It should be a pledge from all of the independents that they will fight tooth and nail to make sure that the Colosseum goes nowhere. And all avenues explored to make sure that that building is restored and made fit for purpose, so a new generation and generations yet to come can enjoy that facility. 135 years, and this is the problem with this town and those that run this town. Time and time and time again, it is always the same. They want shiny new, and they want to force on us things that we do not want or need. We would rather mend, make do, and restore what we have, because we are a proud working class town with decent people who have no need for these shiny new things that they want to blow money on. £27 million was the price of the Colosseum. The council decided it wasn't going to use its own money to do it. That's when this fell apart. We don't need to spend £27 million on a brand new building, on a brand new site. We can spend a tenth of that, or a fifth or a quarter of that, and restore that building so it is fit for purpose and can be continued to be enjoyed the way it has been for generations. And the independents should be committing to that and championing it in the publicity leaflets coming up to the election. That's exactly what they did. They run it into the ground with help of 2 councillors from within. I think that's exactly what they did. They want it empty, so it goes into dereliction and decay, and then it becomes no longer fit for purpose. This is all a plan. This is all a plan. Do you think they accidentally put in 2 bids for the same pot of money so they were competing with each other for £20 million? Do you really think anyone in the council thought they'd get both bids and get £40 million? And I say this not as a joke and not to mock them. I say this with all sincerity and honesty. I've seen better governance in a chicken shop. I've seen better governance in a chicken shop, and I've seen better organisations. Well, I definitely have seen better organisations amongst gangsters and their drug dealing networks. This council is a joke. And the sooner these charlatans are chased out of town, the better. But the only way we're going to chase these out of town is by transforming the governance of this town and removing Amanda CHADDERTON, Barrelgate Bashforth, his wife, Clint Piffian, Kyle Piffian, a whole host of others, George Hume, Abdul Jabbar. We need to chase them out of town. We need to beat them at the ballot box. Perhaps indeed the Ghazali Trust will buy it just before election at a special knockdown price. Who knows, Ian? Who knows? Perhaps the Ghazali Trust will indeed buy it. A very good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.